I woke up in a cold sweat after a dream that felt far too vivid to be a construct of my mind. My surroundings were pitch black, but I smelled pine cones and trees all around me. It didn't matter that I couldn't see much. I knew I had to keep going. There was something waiting for me, or someone. Nobody had seen me leave. I'd climbed out of the window. I was afraid, but I didn't stop walking. It was as if I was being controlled by external forces. Suddenly, two arms grabbed me from behind. "Not you. They promised you would be safe," my mother whispered. I had forgotten about this experience, possibly because I wasn't entirely myself when it happened. My mother brought me back home, where a police car was already waiting. They'd been looking for me for hours. She'd saved me, but back then I didn't know from what. This must have been more than 15 years ago. Now I know that I was following my cousin's call. "Do you have some water?" The unfamiliar voice pulled me back to reality. I still hadn't fully grasped the events of the last day. Luke and I had talked to my parents, who seemed like they were going through some sort of manic episode. Now I was in a hotel, and my brother and his family were in the room next to me, and I was here with my cousin. No, but I can get you some from the sink in the bathroom." He looked miserable. His eyes were bloodshot, and his dark hair, which resembled mine, was going in all directions. He was lying in the bed while I was sitting on the sofa. I must have dozed off on it sometime early this morning. He slowly nodded. Luke had been hesitant about leaving me here with him, but I convinced him that after being drugged and tied up in our basement room, he was probably lacking the energy to hurt me. Besides, we were the ones who got him out, and not without paying a high price. I still have the look on my father's face ingrained into my mind when he said that our star was next door. His eyes opened wider than they humanly should be able to. His grin was so bright that I thought the corners of his mouth might rip. The excitement quickly wore off, however, after I'd pulled the knife from behind my back. It might have been a rash reaction, but for whatever goddamn reason, I chose fight at that moment instead of flight. "Max, stay calm," Luke whispered, but I couldn't. My entire body was shaking. And then the most surprising thing happened. My mother started laughing, hysterically. Then slowly she got up from the tiny plastic chair she was sitting on, all while still laughing. And then my father chimed in and laughed even harder. For a split second, I almost believed that my entire family was playing a prank on me, but then my mother started talking. "Leave the show for the producer, dear. She'll be here soon. I even give you permission to slit my throat," she said with tears in her eyes. "Or you fathers. But it should at least be taped, honey." I was frozen and almost didn't realize that my father had been walking up to me, his hands reaching for the knife. Until Luke jumped in and punched my father in the face, something I never believed I would witness. My father, who had grown old over the years, fell back, and for a moment I felt pity. Even after all they'd revealed about themselves, I still felt bad for them. I still felt attached to them. After the punch, things were going really fast. Luke had taken the knife from my hand and was shouting at my mother to stay back. He walked up to my dad, but instead of helping him up, he grabbed the keys that he had tied to his belt. He threw them over to me, but of course, they fell to the ground. That's when I unfroze. I grabbed the keys and tried a few until one fit the other door in the basement. Inside lay Lee, falling in and out of unconsciousness. It was immediately clear to me that it was him because my grandpa was right. We looked very alike. Luke shouted some more things at my parents and helped me pick up our cousin. Together, we carried him upstairs. My parents didn't move, but as we walked up the stairs, I heard my father say, "You're making a mistake. They will find you." We were on our way to a hospital when Lee started waking up more and more. He begged us not to go to the hospital, but instead to drive to some hotel as far away as possible. Luke didn't question him. After picking up a clueless Jacob and Ellie, we were on the road. On the drive there, Luke tried his best to explain everything to Jacob. He left out some parts, which I assume was because of Lee. "So, I suppose they used us as bait. They said they wanted to plan something for your birthday. Recreate a party they had when you were kids or something." "I shouldn't have gone along, Jacob said after he had been silent for a long time, probably processing the insane story. "I can't believe what you guys have been through," he continued with a hurt undertone, either because Luke had kept this from him or because he genuinely felt bad for us. When we reached the hotel, Lee immediately passed out on the bed. I sat down on the sofa, making sure he kept breathing while listening to Luke's and Jacob's muffled voices next door. But now Lee was awake. Finally, because we hadn't been able to ask him much, and I was damn ready for some answers. After texting Luke, the three of us were sitting on the bed, almost as if we were just boys, cousins, hanging out. But I didn't even remember this cousin. To me, he was a stranger. I swear everything is getting a shitty reboot. Even our murder show, Lee casually said after a while. How can you be joking right now? Luke asked. He shrugged. You get desensitized after a while. Can you tell us more about this show? I asked. Do you want the short or the long version? Maybe start with short, I said, getting nervous. He shrugged. I don't remember much about my parents' death or life before it. To be honest, I don't remember either of you, and I didn't even know you existed. I grew up with Grandma and Grandpa. When I was 11 or so, I saw an ad looking for actors for a new TV show. No idea why, but for some reason I thought that was exactly what I wanted to do. He sighed. I thought there was no way I'd ever get cast. I was some kid from some boring-ass small town. Grandpa took me to auditions. He had no clue what this was about, and for some reason, I actually got the part. Everything else from that time is kind of foggy. There were a couple of other kids who I recently got back in touch with, and some motherfucker named Worley. Luke and I stayed silent, listening to every word. The next part might seem a little absurd to you. He took a deep breath. This show had an awful effect on kids. After watching it, they would run away from home. It was some kind of sick mind control from the production company. I know this sounds insane, but they took all those kids. I don't know how many of them died. He looked at us, waiting for a reaction, probably thinking that we wouldn't believe a word. But we'd seen the tapes and had felt the effect they had. Did you ever go to the police? He shook his head. No, and I suggest you don't either. The risk is too high that they will just send you to the producers. They have powers you can't possibly imagine. But our parents said that the adult in the show is dead. That's Worley, right? Luke asked. Doesn't matter. He didn't matter. They can kill and replace any one of us. To be honest, I don't believe there is anything they cannot do, and running away from them is a next to impossible. A while back, my friends and I had a terrible encounter with them. And then again, but we were able to fight them. Now for a while I thought I was fine, but it never seems to end. And now they somehow got my uncle to lure me back in? I got up from the bed and started pacing around the room. How the hell did my parents get you into our basement? I asked. He looked at the ground. I don't have any family left besides Grandpa. When they reached out to me, I had no idea that they were connected to Worley, that they were insane. He took another long breath. Look, I can tell you everything else I know about this, but first I need to know how you are all connected to this. Luke and I exchanged a look, one that said, can we trust him? But then I thought about it. We could have been the ones in his place. We were lucky. They chose him instead. Luke must have been thinking the same because, after some silence, my brother started speaking and told Lee everything that had happened after we watched the tapes. When Luke was done, we both looked at Lee. He had been quiet all throughout, but now he opened his mouth to speak. So this didn't start with the auditions. It has been determined since I was a baby. And your parents knew everything? I guess. Maybe yours did too, Luke said. Did you tell your parents before looking for the tapes, the regular ones? He asked, looking at me. I nodded. And you'd never seen the other ones before? So they probably planted them there for you to find. But why? He was scratching the stubbles on his face that didn't quite yet make a beard. Did you feel anything when you watched them? Yeah, they made me feel sick and overall a little strange, I said, my mind racing. I looked over at Luke, but he seemed frozen. Cold sweat was forming on his forehead. Lee sighed. If those tapes were made with some connection to the production company, they weren't normal. Watching them might do stuff to you in your mind. Maybe it already did. My guess is that your parents wanted you to see them, and we should find out why before it's too late for you. It had taken power over me once before, and I realized that it could happen again. Maybe it already had. But what I couldn't get out of my mind was that Mom had saved me back then. Why would she push us back in now? So, what should we be prepared for? Luke asked. Hard to say. I mean, if you can't trust your own mind, you just have to go with whatever you believe is real at the moment. There's no survival guide or anything like that. We just have to do our best and hope we survive, Lee said. Fantastic. Lee gave him a half smile. It helps not to be alone. I wouldn't have made it without my friends back then. You have each other, and that matters a lot. Well, for what it's worth, you have us as well. Our parents might be dicks, but we're here for you, Lee, my brother said. Besides, someone who's already been in hell knows how to survive it. I'm still feeling normal. At least I think so, I said. What about you, Luke? He started fumbling with his ring around his finger. Mostly normal, although I've never punched Dad before. And I never threatened our parents with a knife before. To be fair, they deserve that, Lee said, and the three of us laughed. For a moment, we really felt normal. Why do you think they chose you for the show? Why not Luke or me? I asked after a while. I'm not sure. Maybe because I was Alex's age. Who's Alex? Lee looked away. He was the main character, next to Worley. The real star? Luke asked. Lee nodded. So why don't we get that guy? Maybe if they have. I don't know where he is, Lee interrupted with no further explanation. Luke started massaging his temples. I gotta go check on Jacob and Ellie. He gave me a look I didn't understand and walked outside. Do you know what happened to all those children that ran away from home? I asked Lee after a while. He smiled, but there was still some sadness in his eyes. They got to go home, although most of them weren't children anymore at that point. I bit my lip. The thought hadn't left my mind that I was almost one of them. And as hard as I tried to make my mind work, I couldn't remember more about that time. Is there a way we can see that show? I'd like to know. No, Lee interrupted again. We left no traces of it, and trust me, you do not want to see it. But I already have. Well, when I was younger, I was one of the kids, but I don't remember it. Lee looked me up and down. How old are you? He asked. 28. So you were 11 or 12 when Worley aired? Almost too old. He started rubbing his face again. Did your parents ever tell you that I was in it? I shook my head. You said that Worley is dead. Are you sure about that? I asked. He nodded and looked away again. I knew there was more to it. Lee looked like he'd been through a lot, and I could tell that he wasn't quite ready to open up about all the trauma. But he tried. The producer slit his throat in front of my eyes. That's when I realized this wasn't really about Worley. He was a pawn just like the rest of us. Shit, that producer lady really is ruthless. Lee frowned. Not a lady, a man. He was really charismatic too, which makes him even scarier. Are you sure he was the producer? My parents were talking about a woman. Maybe it's a new one. Maybe that's why it's starting again. I gotta make a phone call. Can I borrow your phone? He asked. I handed it over after checking if my parents had tried to contact us. Nothing. No calls, no texts. Lee walked out to the hallway but came back seconds later. The door to your brother's room is open. I immediately jumped up and followed Lee to the room next to ours. It was empty, and on the white sheets was a red stain. Fuck, I shouted, Luke? But of course, there was no answer. Maybe they went downstairs to get some food? Lee asked, but he didn't sound very convincing. I shook my head. He would have told us. Maybe they left. Your brother seems suspicious. Maybe he was scared for his daughter or... No, I whispered. Luke would never leave me alone. The hotel was empty. There was nobody behind the reception, no one in the lobby or the hallways. A massive building, simply wiped clean. A nagging feeling spread through my body, the feeling that we had missed a lot during the short night that we'd spent inside the rooms. It's starting. They are here. They must be, Lee whispered as he looked toward the front door. Give me my phone. I tried to reach Luke, but he didn't answer. I sent him a text, but of course, he didn't reply to that either. Something terrible was happening. We could leave. I don't see anybody outside. We could get weapons or reinforcements, Lee said and looked me in the eyes. After I didn't answer, he added, But you're not leaving, are you? He asked. I shook my head. I'm going to look for my brother. All right, then I'm also staying. We're family, right? I wanted to trust Lee. I felt bad for him. All of this mess was my parents' fault. They were possibly even the reason that Lee was an orphan. Who else would have a better reason to mess with us? I was starting to think that Lee was doing just that, because when I tried to reach Luke, I saw a text that Lee had sent to a strange number. The message said, "It's not me," which I didn't understand, and our current location. But the message wasn't sent earlier when he borrowed my phone. It was sent around 4 a.m., around the time I had dozed off. Staying with Lee might have been more dangerous than just going to look for Luke on my own, but right now I knew I needed him. He was the one they really wanted after all. Luke and I were second choices. All I had to do was not let him notice my mistrust. The hotel had 11 floors, a small lobby, a kitchen, an inside pool, and a conference hall. The kitchen was locked, so we decided to check out the conference hall next. With a sinking feeling inside my stomach, I opened the big white door. "What the?" Lee whispered. We were standing in front of a long table with chairs all around it. At the very top, across from us, sat Luke, tied to a chair. He was wearing a purple blazer. His head was tilted to the side, as if something was wrong with his neck. There was blood on his face. Lee tried to grab my arm but missed it as I ran across the room to my brother. "Luke!" His head slowly moved back to normal. When he saw me, his eyes opened wide. Then his gaze went over to Lee, and he shook his head. "Get out of here," he croaked. "Oh, man!" I heard a different voice shout. At first, I couldn't tell who it was, so I looked at Lee, who I thought was the only other person in the room. But then I realized that there was someone else here who had been standing next to the door with a tape recorder in hand. "Jacob? Oh my God, Max! We're filming a scene right now." "You fucked it up." He had a smile on his face, but his eyes seemed angrier than I'd ever seen them before. "No," I whispered. Then I noticed that he was holding something in his other hand, a hunting knife. "Did you hurt Luke with that?" I asked. He nodded, like a proud boy. Jacob was almost as tall as Luke and could seem crazy intimidating if you didn't know that he was actually super sweet. Normally, his eyes were opened wide as sweat was going down his forehead. "Only a little bit. He's totally fine." "Where's Ellie?" I asked, looking at Luke. For a split second, I saw the devastated look on his face and thought of the worst. "She'll be right back," Jacob whispered, his eyes twitching for a split second. "Anyway, you and your cousin, especially your cousin, are more than welcome to join us?" he asked while moving the knife around. I looked at Lee, who was still standing at the door. He could have run away, but he didn't. Instead, he was making eye contact with me, and from what I interpreted, it looked like, "Together we can take him." But before we could move, we started hearing the sound of heels walking on the wooden floor. They stopped right behind Lee. A woman started caressing his cheek with long, black nails, and Lee lost all the color in his skin. She was wearing a checkered jacket, denim pants, and purple shoes. In her left arm, she was holding Ellie. My eyes opened wide. The woman smiled. "Hello there," she said in a playful tone. "Give her to me, please," Luke begged. The woman walked past Lee and towards the table where she took a seat on the right side next to Luke. Ellie reached out her arms when she saw him, and my heart broke a little. But at least she seemed fine. She was smiling and didn't have a single scratch on her. "Come on in, Lee. We have a lot to discuss." He walked towards me, and together we sat down on the left side of the table. It felt surreal, like we had just joined a regular work meeting. Jacob followed and sat down next to the woman. All of us were suddenly eerily calm, except for Jacob, who still had that insane look on his face. "All right, let's get straight to the point. I was personally asked to take charge of the reboot of Dr. Worley's Adventure Club, and I have a proposition for you boys." I swallowed. "You're the new producer, huh?" Lee asked casually. "What happened to the old one?" "He is very busy, but he trusts me to do well with this task." "Right, and what's stopping us from punching you in the face and running off?" She shrugged. "Nothing. I wouldn't stop you. So, no need to punch me. I am giving you an opportunity right now to start a conversation with us. As you know, we get what we want, and we will always find you again. What I'm doing now is give you the opportunity to get the little girl out of here. We're not interested in her." "How?" Luke asked, slowly coming back to his senses. "I don't need all of you. And believe it or not, I don't want you guys to hate us but join us, which I realize won't happen if we keep the babe. So I'm letting one of you leave with her." The other ones stay at the hotel with me and talk. That's it. She gave us a big smile. I will leave the room and let you discuss, though I expect an answer when I get back. She got up from her chair, walked over to our side and gave Ellie to me. Then she gestured something towards Jacob, who got up and left the room with her. I gave Ellie a kiss on her head and then gave her to Luke, who hugged her tight. There are no windows or other doors. We can't get out of this room, Lee said. I carefully touched Luke's face where the blood was starting to dry. Jacob did this to you? He nodded. You know, we were wondering if watching the tapes did anything to us, but I didn't even think about the fact that Jacob had seen parts of it too. I swallowed. Luke, are you normal? I asked. I don't know, man. I'm not sure what normal feels like anymore. I think it's safest if you don't trust anyone. I agree, Lee chimed in. So what do we do? For the first time, I was sure of what needed to happen. Luke, you go. You take Ellie and get yourself to a hospital. I will listen to what the producer has to say. Max, no way. No fucking way. I put my hand on his shoulder and leaned in closer. We've been cursed since the first moment Mom and Dad got involved in all this. But we're adults now. Ellie isn't. Get her out. Jacob followed and sat down next to the woman. All of us were suddenly eerily calm, except for Jacob, who still had that insane look on his face. All right, let's get straight to the point. I was personally asked to take charge of the reboot of Dr. Worley's Adventure Club, and I have a proposition for you boys. I swallowed. You're the new producer, huh? Lee asked casually. What happened to the old one? He is very busy, but he trusts me to do well with this task. Right, and what's stopping us from punching you in the face and running off? She shrugged. Nothing. I wouldn't stop you. So, no need to punch me. I am giving you an opportunity right now to start a conversation with us. As you know, we get what we want, and we will always find you again. What I'm doing now is give you the opportunity to get the little girl out of here. We're not interested in her. How? Luke asked, slowly coming back to his senses. I don't need all of you, and believe it or not, I don't want you guys to hate us but join us, which I realize won't happen if we keep the babe. So I'm letting one of you leave with her. The other ones stay at the hotel with me and talk. That's it. She gave us a big smile. I will leave the room and let you discuss, though I expect an answer when I get back. She got up from her chair, walked over to our side and gave Ellie to me. Then she gestured something towards Jacob, who got up and left the room with her. I gave Ellie a kiss on her head and then gave her to Luke, who hugged her tight. There are no windows or other doors. We can't get out of this room, Lee said. I carefully touched Luke's face where the blood was starting to dry. Jacob did this to you? He nodded. You know, we were wondering if watching the tapes did anything to us, but I didn't even think about the fact that Jacob had seen parts of it too. I swallowed. Luke, are you normal? I asked. I don't know, man. I'm not sure what normal feels like anymore. I think it's safest if you don't trust anyone. I agree, Lee chimed in. So what do we do? For the first time, I was sure of what needed to happen. Luke, you go. You take Ellie and get yourself to a hospital. I will listen to what the producer has to say. Max, no way. No fucking way. I put my hand on his shoulder and leaned in closer. We've been cursed since the first moment Mom and Dad got involved in all this. But we're adults now. Ellie isn't. Get her out. I started remembering Lee and Alex, and I now know what my mother did. Before I ran away, before I watched the show, I was brought to the auditions. My parents had a big argument. My mother was shouting that I was too fragile, but my father shouted back that Luke was too old. He won't be harmed. He will be a star. After the fight, Mom came to my room. She picked the clothes I would wear, combed my hair, and even put some makeup on my face. We have to make a good impression. She smiled at me, but I knew she wasn't happy. Something was going on. I'd forgotten all of that, but now it was coming back. Parents weren't allowed inside for the auditions. They had given us all a sentence, put us in front of a camera, and filmed how we said it. I don't remember much more, only that a number of children were filtered out. 2 girls were picked for the female roles. For the male ones, there were 3 boys left. I didn't know who they were back then, but now I realize it must have been Alex, Leakin, and me. That's where things got really fucked up. Two of us were supposed to be chosen for the show, and I think I had a pretty good chance. But then something happened. My mother killed me.co. The memories came back in little chunks, which I assume had something to do with how the following day went. Because now, 15 years later, Lee and I were back at the auditions. It wasn't easy, but Luke left. Lee instructed him not to go to any authorities about this. He said it would make things even harder for us. He promised we would be fine, as he knew how to deal with them. The producers sent us to separate hotel rooms to rest for the following day. We were on the 11th floor and our doors were locked from the outside, but we realized we could communicate by opening our windows. Our rooms were right next to each other. I don't know what will happen to us now, but can we be honest with each other? I asked, sitting on the window ledge. Lee was silent for a moment. Yeah, he finally replied. Why did you tell them where we are? What? The producer, you sent them our location. Lee huffed. No, I didn't. I'm pretty sure it was Jacob, genius. Right. But I saw the text, I protested. Yeah, that wasn't to the producer. It was still dumb. And risky, though, he sighed. Sorry, I should have told you. Remember how I said that I didn't know where Alex was? A while back, he just disappeared. No contact, nothing. I sent that text to another friend that went through the Worley madness with us. This will sound weird, but I guess everything does at the moment. The Worley people have a way of creating new versions of us. Like on the tapes? Number worse. Those versions are real. They look like us, at least from a distance. They are more fucked, uncanny, and they can manipulate us. If you saw messed up tapes from your childhood, it might possibly not have been the real you. Anyway, I warned my friend that it could happen again. I wanted to make sure that, whatever happened, she knew that it was me. My head started hurting, but weirdly, it made sense to me. Maybe after all I'd witnessed in those days, things couldn't surprise me anymore. Do you think your friend can help us? No, she's on the other side of the world right now. That's the only reason I texted her. Wouldn't have involved her otherwise. But in case something happened, I wanted her to have our last location. I swallowed. For a second, I had a bit of hope, but it was quickly taken again. Can you be honest with me as well? Lee asked. I nodded, which I realized he couldn't see, but he continued anyway. Your parents killed mine, didn't they? After everything I've learned about them, I think it might be possible. After that, we both closed our windows. I only slept for an hour or two that night. Though as I was lying in bed, it felt as if I was living somewhere in between the wake and the dream world. And that's where the memories came back more detailed. The auditions. The three of us were sitting in a colorful room on small plastic chairs, surrounded by toys that we were too old for already. Lee was really chatty and seemed incredibly fun back then. Neither of us knew that we were cousins, but we got along well. Alex was quieter but had something very cool about him. I remember that now. Hanging out with them was fun. I don't think any of us were feeling competitive. After a few hours inside that waiting room, they asked us back to the studio. Again, our parents were nowhere to be found. Most of the lights inside the studio were turned off, but I could see that they had built a set. The ground felt like a sponge. Every step we took was like a little jump. Alex was giggling until the voice of a man welcomed us. Next to him stood two other boys. I couldn't see a lot, but they had much resemblance with Lisa and Alex. Max, the producer said, you did a wonderful job. However, at this time, we can't consider you for the show. You will meet your mother in the parking lot. That was it. Lee and Alex said goodbye to me, but their voices sounded different, scared. While I was sad that I wouldn't be joining them, I still felt relief, opening the door of the studio and getting out. I remembered that my bag was still inside the dressing room, where I was brought at the very beginning, so I walked there first. And that's when I saw the corpses. There were multiple bodies lying on the ground. They had been cut open and a purple substance was leaking from them. The substance made me believe that they were props, so with a beating heart, I went to inspect them further. And that's when I realized that they all looked like me, in different years of my life. One of them, the biggest one, was wearing the same clothes I was wearing that day. At first, I thought it was cool. I was 13, and believed they had created them for the show. But then I noticed that one of them was slowly moving his hand. I stumbled back toward the door and started running. I didn't stop until I found my mom's car. The drive home felt like a fever dream. "You will forget about this soon enough, my dear. It will be like a dream. Your father would have been proud if you made the cut, but I believe your cousin will do just fine. The producers will be happy." She kept staring right ahead, hardly blinking at all. I noticed the purple blood splatters on her skirt, but I didn't ask her about it. At home, she played her part well, crying her eyes out because they chose Lee instead of me, acting like she was disappointed because we couldn't be a bigger part of the production. But now I believe that for a little while, she slipped out of the manipulation and saved me, or at least won some time. Those memories had been buried somewhere deep inside of me, but now they felt crystal clear, especially after what Lee had told me about the copies. A knock on my hotel door brought me back to the present. I opened it and some worker gave me a tray with breakfast. I asked them questions but received no answers. An hour later, there was another knock. The same person brought me and Lee downstairs to the room with the swimming pool. When they opened the door, we heard the sound of a familiar-sounding jingle. "Dun dun doo doo dun." Lee clenched his fist. "There you are," the producer lady welcomed us, but I didn't even look at her. I was overwhelmed by the strange surroundings. I'd seen indoor pools before, but they had changed everything about it. The room was lit with gray and blue lights. Inside the pool was a dark substance that appeared sticky. Around it, they had created fake bushes and trees. There were cameras running the entire time. Besides the producer, there were a few workers, all dressed in the same overall. One of them was Jacob. "We are so excited to create a new audition tape with you. However, our new concept will be a one-man show. For this reason, we would like to estimate in advance who our new star will be. We only want the strongest one, the best." The acoustics in the room made it sound like she was everywhere around us. I will be completely honest, neither of you was our first choice. We believed to have the best one secured, but he is not currently in our possession. "In your possession? What the fuck is wrong with you people?" Lee shouted. Even through the bad lighting, I could see that she was rolling her eyes. "Anyway, whoever pushes the other one into the pool first wins. You will both be handed the same weapon to keep things fair." Two of the assistants walked over and handed each of us a knife. My stomach started turning. "You want us to fight? This is ridiculous. Neither of us wants to do this." Lee looked at me, but I couldn't make eye contact. My body was trembling. "I will do it. I'll be your star or whatever." "Just let Max go," he said, surprising both me and the producer. She started laughing. "How very brave of you, but this is not how it works. We need to see who is better." I moved a step closer to the pool and looked at the substance. My sneaker touched the edge and the fabric immediately started to melt. "You want one of us to kill the other?" I whispered. "What if we don't do it?" Lee asked. "We will push both of you in and use one of our spares. We still have the option of a girl. And your brother, of course." I swallowed. There was no way I would kill Lee, but having us both dead wasn't an option either. A timer started ringing. "Go on!" she shouted. Lee and I looked at each other, both frozen. I was sure that if it came down to it, he would do it, but he stood still. I took the knife and cut it inside my palm. Blood started trickling down. Real red blood. Lee saw what I did and copied me.